So imagine this, right? It's March of 2025, and you know, Game of the Year, the most nominated game in Game Awards history, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, finally releases on Steam, PlayStation, and on Xbox, as well as Game Pass. Game Pass in 2025 was doing pretty good before Microsoft decided to shoot themselves in the foot again. My friend Kaiju was nice enough to give me the game as a birthday present a few months later. Shoutouts to you, Kaiju. I appreciate you so much. And my journey finally began. I go in, I'm loving it until I hit a certain point. I'm fighting Sprong in Act 2. Probably shouldn't have been doing that, especially considering this was early Act 2, but hey, I love a challenge. My unit is Lune, Monaco, and Mael. So Lune has this little ability where she can do crazy damage, but to use the move, you gotta hit the QTE prompt, or else you take big damage in return. Now I'm playing this game on a 2060, and so far it was running okay. Like, it wasn't the prettiest thing, but I could at least run like Black Myth Wukong and still maintain 60 FPS. But when it came to this game, man, I was experiencing some crazy stutters, especially when it came to this fight. It was so bad that I could not tell what the screen would look like. Like, I would see the prompt appear, and I'll try pressing it, but it would freeze, I missed the input, and I would lose the fight due to self-immolation. So it was time for an upgrade. I didn't want to buy a brand new computer because my PC worked pretty well. I got a DDR4 MSI Tomahawk, and that's compatible with current cards. So I decided to look into getting a 50 series, which in 2025 is like trying to win the lottery with how crazy those prices were getting. And they probably still going to be insane going further. Have you seen those recent RAM prices, dog? So I took it upon myself to look for alternative means. I went to Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, it's not really the best place to look, but I saw a pretty good deal on a 5070 for about $500, as well as a 5070 Ti for around $700. So again, a pretty good deal, but you never know what you might get when it comes to Facebook Marketplace. You never know what kind of sketchy situation you might get into just trying to find a cheap Switch too. So it's always good to consolidate with a friend, especially if you're making the purchase in person, which is what I did with my friend Nigel, as he was also looking to build a brand new PC at the time. He saw the post and asked the guy a couple questions. He allowed us to pull up and test the GPUs ourselves before deciding to make a purchase. Now viewers, before you decide to do anything like this, make sure that you, 1, ask a lot of questions. Make sure that seller isn't trying to pull a fast one. Number 2, agree to only meet in public places. Never go to any secluded areas. And finally, number 3, make sure to bring somebody with you in case things go awry. So me and Nigel went over there, tested the GPUs, we liked what we saw, and we bought a 5070 and a 5070 Ti respectively. I slapped that joint into my PC, and now I could truly enjoy experiencing Clair Obscur Expedition 33 in the fullest.
Time for the greatest expedition in history.
Now personally, I was excited to play this game from the reveal trailer alone, but I was cautiously optimistic as I had been burned by games before with games like Biomutant, if you remember that, and Cyberpunk. However, I was still excited to get my hands on it, and when I could actually properly play it, it was an amazing experience, which is surprising because this game was a sleeper hit. Like, Microsoft literally announced the Oblivion remake the same week this game was getting released. However, it still made massive waves in the gaming community. This was reminding me of the years when Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring had come out. I took my time to play those games in order to truly understand what made them get that award, and after playing Clair Obscur, I understood why this game had received such praise. Now in 2025, there are plenty of great games that came out. I even found myself liking an RPG a bit more than Clair Obscur, but might do a video on that sometime next year. If there is a game that you enjoyed more than Clair Obscur, that's perfectly fine. All the nominees for the Game Awards this year were some pretty solid choices. However, I think Clair Obscur provided something that just hit a bit different in comparison. Now, I'm not saying that this game is the greatest thing in the world, but playing this reminded me of how I played games in my childhood. This sense of childhood wonderment in exploring and learning more about this world and its characters. This world is filled with many mysteries and secrets to find, all being enhanced through its captivating soundtrack. Playing this game reminded me of how I felt when I played Nier Automata and finally made it all the way to Ending C. Both had these unique sounding OSTs that encapsulate the setting and the world. Was it any surprise that Clair Obscur took home the best soundtrack as well? The one thing that I can say that is very distinct in this game is the passion that was put into it. This feels like a labor of love for gaming, and developers definitely wear their influences on their sleeve. Like, I took a look at the early demo footage for the game, and it's very clear inspired by Final Fantasy, specifically 7 with some of its environments and character design. But I'm very happy the developers took the route of making something a bit more unique. Speaking of developers, I was surprised to hear that the dev team for this game were formerly Ubisoft developers, but never really put it past them to make a good game. I am a firm believer that there is no developer that wants to make the project that they've been working on for multiple years to be a huge flop. Rather, it is the executives of AAA companies that insist on adding microtransactions, season passes, and loot boxes in games. When you give developers full creative freedom, they are able to create some really great titles. Hence a lot of the nominees this year were indie games that are allowed the time and freedom to be made how the devs wanted. This was a major factor as to why Sandfall Interactive signed on with Kepler Interactive, as the publisher agreed to give the dev team full creative control over their project, which is what they used to promote for all their teams, as Kepler Interactive was started by another former Ubisoft dev. They offered to help fund the game after seeing what Sandfall Interactive have prepared for them. Kind of funny they rejected them the first time they approached them though. After seeing a couple interviews with the devs of this game, it is very clear that they worked on the game with nothing but a passion for what they were making, as most of the dev team weren't even established game developers, with some of their first experiences in the industry being working on this game. However, a lot of things that they found important were resoundingly the same. They wanted to create something that they truly wanted to create, putting that at the forefront of all their creative decisions, and I think it truly paid off.
For those who come after.
Now let's move on to talking about the gameplay for this game. It's one of the factors that definitely stood out to me. The lead developer of Clair Obscur, Guillaume Broche, talks in his interviews how he wanted to make a game that was reminiscent of some of his favorite titles like Final Fantasy and Persona, but added some interesting spins to it, like the parry system was added due to his love for Sekiro, as he is a speedrunner for the game. He added it in because he felt that it was too boring in how typically RPGs have you wait for enemy actions. Instead, he wanted to make the whole process feel active, which is why he added in a parry and dodge mechanic similar to Yakuza Like a Dragon and Paper Mario. Also explains why the turns have button prompts that are also similar to Paper Mario, and most notably Lost Odyssey. The director quotes Lost Odyssey as an inspiration for the game's more realistic designed characters blended into a fantastical setting. Also, Lost Odyssey is pretty underrated, so if you have a 360, maybe give it a shot. These mechanics combined make the game feel a lot more involved than most typical turn-based style RPGs. While I still love old school turn-based RPGs with Octopath Traveler, Metaphor Refantagio, and Final Fantasy being some of my favorites, there's a point where the combat eventually becomes a bit too repetitive and a little bit boring, especially when you hit the point of having to constantly grind in order to do some of the extra content. You're just pressing the same options over and over again. The parry mechanics and Q2E prompts help keep the combat engaging. I never felt bored when playing this game. Instead, I got pissed off because of these dumbass hit frames some of these pieces of shit have. I'm over here getting mixed up, bro. Oh my god. I also love the art style of the game. I know there are some folks who label this game as UE5 slop, and to that I think they haven't really played the game. The usage of lighting and colors in for the different scenes and how the camera will change for certain boss battles is reminiscent of Aid and Chronicles, with how the game will change camera angles for some of the duels. This game is a beautiful blend of the Belle Epoque era of France mixed in with this fantasy vibe, making it more distinctive in the RPG landscape. And some of these areas are a true marvel to look at. Once again, this is all elevated by the music of the game. This soundtrack is one of the best pieces of music I've heard in a game all year. You know a game is good when you're at the literal title screen and you're already hit with the banger. Honestly, I was sold by the music from the Ville trailer alone. Laurent Testad was originally a composer who loved video game OSTs, even going as far as to make fan music for video game trailers that he liked, but had never worked on making game OSTs. So when they reached out to him to help compose for the game, it was essentially his first time ever doing so, and I believe he did a fantastic job. He truly created an OST that captured the themes of the game. I especially love his usage of vocals for the game. Certain tracks sound like two people are having this back and forth argument. As mentioned before, it gives me the same vibes as the Nier Automata OST, in which both use the music to seamlessly blend in with immersing you to the world you're engaging with. Is it really any surprise that this game took home best soundtrack as well? This man made a 30-minute song, bruh. Dudes these days barely make 3-minute tracks, and this man said he's gonna go 10 times beyond. The narrative for this game, in my opinion, is one of its strongest aspects. Now I won't spoil anything as I feel this is a narrative that you should explore yourselves. It's definitely a story that actually made me feel something. Guillaume mentioned how when trying to determine what the central theme of the story would be, he went and asked his mother what the worst thing that could happen to her was. Her reply was that it would be if he and his siblings were gone. It is definitely reflected in this story. The story centers around the grief of loss for a lot of its characters. When you progressively lose everyone you love at a quicker rate year by year, you're just kind of left pondering what the value of life is at that point, facing this hopeless expedition in the hopes that yours may be the one to put an end to the cycle of death. But once you do, those people you lost still remain lost. How do you cope when all the people you love no longer stand beside you? I really enjoy how this game allows for that feeling of grief to hit both you and the characters in an impactful manner. Oftentimes I feel with RPGs, there are many times where devs kind of get overwritten or are just kind of used to play up a scene. So when a game centers around it and there's no sudden resolution for it, it makes it feel more impactful. Some great examples of this are Persona 3 and Lost Odyssey to me, where the values of life and death are the focal points in the narrative. How do you make the most out of living a life where on an ongoing basis you're dealing with the grief of seeing the people you love die consistently? I especially love that this topic is being done with a generally older cast. Not to say that having a younger cast is bad or anything, but it's nice to see a perspective that isn't really focused upon a lot in the RPG market. Oftentimes you're dealing with high school individuals or fresh college graduates, but in Clair Obscur, you're dealing with people who had husbands, people who were considered fathers to some of these characters, people who have lived so long that they find it unbearable. It's just a different perspective, and I generally find it all the more refreshing. I guess the better way to describe it would be that the characters all feel human. There isn't a completely evil character. Even the characters you play as are not paragons of good. Rather, everyone is bathed in this shade of gray. The actions that they take often peel back the layers that you had not witnessed until now, but all of that tends to add up to make them feel all the more human. It's especially shown in their dialogue and banter. The dialogue in this game feels natural. None of it feels like someone is hamming it up or overacting, so to speak. Like one night when you approach CL in proper French attire, she asks if you want to start a fling with her. This taught me an important lesson. If you wear the baguettes, you get D6. But in all seriousness, it is this balance of light-hearted moments mixed in with the dark undertones that make the characters feel all the more human, painted pictures of light and dark, the clair and the obscur. In conclusion, 2025 was a great year for gaming, but this game stood out amongst them. It is shown through how much care and passion was put into the game that a dev team comprised of people who were relatively new to the game industry were able to make something that could compete with the best of them. I truly feel that this game will leave a mark in history, but if you decide to play it, don't expect the most groundbreaking thing ever. That's definitely not what it was for me. Instead, it was a story that I could connect to, that I could express myself with, and I hope that when you take your own expedition, you're able to feel the same way. One last thing, I'm gonna leave you with a quote that I found from the devs that really spoke to me. Je parie que tu acertes ça. Honestly, take the time to look it up. These are very touching words. Anyways, Happy New Year's, y'all. Stay safe.